hey, I'm going
Yeah,
to scorch you in the sun for you. It's
exactly.
like, no, I need that shade and water, buddy.
Exactly. I was sitting across the table from these people. And I thought, hey, I kind of like, I'm telling them how to present to investors. I actually like what they're doing. I thought the businesses were interesting. So I just got exposure to a lot of different types of businesses. And so that's what I think kind of sparked, hey, maybe I should do something else and step off something. At least 90% of philanthropy is personal. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions in the industry is that if you're a new nonprofit.
What's the most misunderstood thing about philanthropy today? Yeah, so really appreciate you saying yes to this podcast. What else did I want to say about it? So you have a commencement speech online, a
Oh, you
couple
saw
of them.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, you
Okay.
Google your
Those things
name and
always
there's
exist, right?
and that's what an interesting story. What an interesting journey that you have taken. And we'll just kind of get right
Yeah.
into it. So before we get into all these details, I was hoping you can give us a 30,000 foot view of your career and the three key chapters or turning points that you'd highlight from your journey through investing, entrepreneurship, and leadership.
Yeah. So I think it all started when I was a junior in high school and I took AP history, and you learn about, we call them the robber barons in history books, right? But I thought, hey, these people were building great businesses and solving sort of thorny problems at a time when we were industrializing. And I was like, business is kind of a cool thing. I didn't know what it meant. I looked around in my local community. I thought people running businesses there were people I thought, I would aspire to. So that was really where it started. I thought business was interesting. So I would say my first chapter was more of an advisor, shall we say, both consultant and investment banker. That wasn't in it doing it, although it's hard work. You're not actually creating, you're more advising. So that's when it started. My second chapter, I went to go work for an entrepreneur. And at that time, the company I joined, the International Finance Corp, had just invested. And this entrepreneur basically took one asset and created the largest provider of higher education in the world, 1 million students. So I thought, hey, isn't that interesting that you can do well while doing good? And so I think that for me was the chapter around being a creator and a builder, but also trying to have impact. And that kind of led to the entrepreneurial path of, hey, you can do well while doing good, but have an interesting business that makes a difference. And so I like the philanthropic sector because you're connecting the wealth creators with the ability to be generous. So those are, I would say, the three chapters and where it all started.
Yeah, so where a lot of people will keep their whole careers in that wealth management, you said it just wasn't really doing it for you because you weren't really creating. And what else was helping to spark that jump into the entrepreneurial lane?
Being on Wall Street was a great opportunity. I actually got to sit across from, I was helping raise capital for companies, so management teams. So I wasn't, we would do diligence on the companies. Investors would, participate in the transactions. We would raise capital. But I was sitting across the table from these people. And I thought, hey, I kind of like, I'm telling them how to present to investors. I actually like what they're doing. I thought the businesses were interesting. So I just got exposure to a lot of different types of businesses. And so that's what I think kind of sparked, hey, maybe I should do something else and step off the treadmill and go do something else. And there's risk involved with that. You kind of, when you take a new direction, you're learning, you're not quite starting over, but you're not at the place where you might have been in the previous journey. So that's how it was for me. I don't know if that, when you started your company, was that the first thing you did, or how did you?
Very similar. I
Yeah.
was having insight into companies as well. I was
Yep.
selling for a decade ERP services, so
Oh
like
yeah.
back end
Yep.
software. And so I was getting to see behind the curtain on how all these super fast growing, like everything from like their P&L to like everything I was able to see. And I was really focused on the natural products, mostly like skincare, makeup. Those were
Mm-hmm.
like really just
Mm-hmm.
explosive brands about 6 years ago when I was last doing that. I'm like seeing all these disparate systems. I was like, okay, well, I could start with where they're starting and I could do that. So I was in this way, not really consulting, but helping them solve some problems on how to scale.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. These people seem like the same as me. They seem like they're having a great time. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, when I got into the professional world in the late 90s, that I was at Deloitte Consulting, there was a lot of ERP implementations happening at that time. So I wasn't involved in those, but it was definitely the wave for sure. And yeah, you get exposure to a lot of things, but you kind of know a little bit about everything. So a little bit of going deep on something helps too.
It's
Mary,
been a very humbling path for me.
is
I
that right?
thought I was like, I was a
Yeah.
rock star salesman. I'm like, oh, I'm going to be the best supplement microgreen salesman the world's ever seen. The first account I tried to win was Vail Resorts,
Mm.
and publicly traded. They're
Hmm.
importing their microgreens from California. I rent a house like right down the street, 2-car garage. I just build a microgreens farm in my
Hmm.
garage,
Hmm.
and then I was like, "Hey, you guys ready to buy this?" And then a year later, they still hadn't bought it, so I had to pivot. Well, maybe like 6 months later, I had to pivot. I was literally taking backpacks full of microgreens up to the top of Peak Two
Hmm.
Keystone, where they have
Hmm.
a like maybe my favorite 5-star resort in Colorado, the Alpenglow.
Hmm.
Um, and I still couldn't win the account. I was super humbled. Turned to farmers markets, started doing 3 or 4 of those a week, and then turned to, it was mostly tourists, so then started drying the microgreens because they wanted it back in California, Texas, wherever. And then I moved to Boulder being like the Silicon Valley of the natural products
Yeah.
industry. I
Yep.
came here for its community and just kept going.
So did you ever figure out going back to that first sale why it didn't happen, or did you ever get it, or do you know what?
Somebody else ended up getting it.
Okay.
Another, maybe I kind of like softened the beaches a
Yeah.
little bit, but I've always had. I was like, and they're crushing it. They're doing so well,
Yep.
and I'm happy for them, and I'm friends with them, and collaborate with them. Um, and what else to say? They just had a procurement that I couldn't get through. I mean, it's a publicly traded company. They have the most 5-star restaurants in the country. And I was just meant to go down a different path. And I ended up starting the first dried microgreens company in the country, which was like a whole category creation. There's a lot of blessings to it and a lot of learnings.
Hmm.
Um, and then really undervaluing marketing because I was like one-on-one sales. The marketing department never helped me in the
Hmm.
company that I worked at. And so I really undervalued it. I'm like, I'm just going to just brute force this thing. And now I really understand the marketing. Like, okay, this my voice right now. Literally thousands of people will see clips from this, and that will help to sell the product versus just that one-on-one farmers market. The farmers market's really helpful too to kind of hone the story and the message, and you could bring a different product and pricing and pitch every single market. But yeah, this is really how you scale. The marketing at least is in this kind of a way, digital way.
Yeah, I totally relate to. I had begrudgingly had to embrace some presence on LinkedIn, talking about the product in the business, going to conferences, just being out there, and it's really not my nature to do
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So it harkens back to you probably know the book Ryan Holiday, The Obstacles of the Way. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
take what's stopping me, and then using that in a way to propel you. Actually, and it sounds like that's what got you into your path now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wherever I have the most hesitation and fear, that's what his book and what I try to do as
Yeah,
well lean into because that's where
yeah,
the most growth is.
yep.
I'm like, oh, I'm kind of scared to put my voice out there and my thoughts and my opinions and just to see it. And it's like this is where all the growth comes from. There's been so many hidden miracles just from doing this podcast alone,
Hmm.
let alone creating content consistently and building team around it. Now I've got many editors and consultants and all people like I've got a really nice team around me helping me on this. I think I need a teammate to help me figure out the camera
It's
situation.
okay. We can't do it all, right?
It's fun to
Yeah,
enjoy just where it's at right now
yeah,
because where this was at 2 months ago looked way different where it's going
yep.
to be at 6 months from now. So it's just fun to enjoy the ride as well. So you're doing marketing now for, is it the Giving Place?
We sold Giving Place.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our admired peers when we started the company was a company called Foundation Source. So uh, originally we sold Giving Place to the company I now run, Tiff and Give, and then we sold that product to one of our admired peers. So yeah, that's the path there. But Giving Place was the beginning of the entrepreneurial journey.
So with that, you're serving family offices and private foundations. What problems were you seeing there that no one else was solving?
It wasn't obvious starting the journey, but when you have, you think about philanthropy, for most people, it's I'm sending a check or I'm on my friend's doing a fundraiser and I charge my credit card and that's what happens. Many people on their tax returns will use the standard deduction, so they're not actually filing the itemization of their charitable receipts. the farther up you go the ladder, the more sort of tools in the toolkit philanthropists and families are using, and the more rules you come across. So what we try to do is just say, look, we're one place, one portal for philanthropic giving, and started with, with any entrepreneurial thing, it's like try to solve a wedge problem to say, and then expand from there. So it was this very large philanthropic market. I would say ultra high net worth is probably 20% of U.S. annual giving. Right now, it's about $600 billion a year, but 20% of that comes from a very small number. So we said, how can we make that more effective? So that was really the original problem and value proposition. And then we said, you know what, I think it's going to have more impact and it'll simplify our current business by selling that product. So we still service family offices, but we're focused now on a donor advice fund.
Would you break down the state of giving
Yeah.
in the U.S. today? Like who's giving? How much are we giving? Is it on the rise?
It's interesting because you get a tax deduction for giving, right? Like I said, most people don't avail themselves of that, but that is one sort of aspect of it. And since 1971, they've been tracking this data. And you can think about, if you look at history, all the different presidents and tax regimes and marginal tax rates, it has pretty much tracked about 2% of GDP since 1971. So you could think, hey, if the U.S. economy is growing, giving will grow. I also think what you see, I'm a Gen Xer, as you can tell, but younger generations, it's actually much more built into how they operate, from the, as you know, from the products people buy and to what they expect companies to do, sort of corporate giving programs, making, let's call it generosity, a part of life. So I think it's much more ingrained in the new generation. So I would expect as the economy grows, as the sort of Gen Xers and above move along. I mean, we're a very generous country. If you look at the history, it's amazing stories. One of my favorites, Carl Zinsmeister, wrote a book called the Almanac of American Philanthropy. And there's a summary version, but you read these stories of how people just solve problems through philanthropy. And it wasn't about the tax code, although that's always a conversation now. It's just in our ethos as a country. And we're by far the largest, most philanthropic country in the world. We are the largest economy, but we're also the most philanthropic. So so I'm very bullish on what it can be, how it can be done. I think there's a lot of innovation in the space to sort of create even more impact, but that's a kind of a summary state, if you will.
Yeah. Do you think we're so philanthropic because we have such a melting pot of different religions, and so many of the top religions have a philanthropic kind of way about them? Like within Christianity, what I grew up in, there's tithing. From my research around this, still, correct me if I'm wrong, most giving is given to religious organizations. Maybe like 20-30% of all giving is going to religious organizations.
That could be right. I don't know sort of the breakdown across cause areas, but I certainly see it. We serve some faith-based firms, wealth firms, and donors. They are orders of magnitude incredibly generous. And it's amazing to see how committed they are. And some of it's their local church, but it could be a variety of different causes, so long as it sort of aligns with how they think of it spiritually. But from my standpoint, that's inspiring. But I also look at where we operate is we're just trying to activate generosity of all kinds. So we have I see it across all flavors. Mm-hmm. But you're right, faith-based. It is, people, there's some professional athletes will give 10% of their checks to philanthropy. So it's pretty cool to see.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil and ingredients greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
You've said that philanthropy is underutilized in wealth conversations. Why do you think that is, and where's kind of the opportunity to fix that?
Historically, I think advisors, and it's totally understandable, but the conversation was really about asset allocation, planning for retirement, things like that, are and still remain important to people. What I think, as I talked about that generational shift, what's also happening is that people think about their wealth not just as their investable assets, but the legacy, passing on their values to their kids. And that can come in a variety of different ways. I mean, it doesn't have to be sending money to charities, but that is a way to do it, in a very popular way. So equipping wealth advisors with more confidence and awareness around what the opportunities are with philanthropy, how to equip them to have these conversations with families and really connect with other family members. Because many will just talk to Gen 1. And as you can imagine, many families aren't, hey, let's bring them into the wealth conversation about the investable assets. It's really not, there's still a sensitivity around that in families, and I understand. But philanthropy can be different. And the way we do it is, hey, if you're, we call it a head of household, Gen 1, whatever you want to call it, they can allocate money to other family members, friends. We make that possible. So, and then that person who gets those funds can give it away, but they don't see the full amount. And so what it allows advisors to do is connect with that new audience. And that can help them grow their practices, but also kind of be more than just providing financial advice. And so that's where I see that zeitgeist change is happening. We see it more and more. It's just increasingly more a part of the conversation.
How are you sorting out who to give money to? So I'm hearing a conversation around tax.
Mm-hmm.
Is there conversation around like maybe the efficiency of the money? How much is actually going to helping people versus marketing, administrative costs? Like, how do people think about who to give to?
Well, so certainly tax is part of the conversation because, for those people who hold NVIDIA stock and say, hey, my portfolio has gotten a little out of whack here, I want to balance it out. Funding, let's say a donor advised fund, allows someone to take appreciated securities and get the full deduction on those and avoid the capital gains, and then pre-fund their philanthropy. So if someone's already being generous, it's just an efficient way to say, hey, we can rebalance the portfolio of your investable assets, pre-fund your philanthropy so you can do that. So that's where tax plays a role. But then the question is, and I think it starts with, what's the intention? And I think where we see technology is taking intention and making it actionable, making it easy, giving people the tools to do that. You had mentioned one point, Steve, about the administrative costs and things like that. I think that is one of the biggest misconceptions in the industry, is that if you're a new nonprofit, your quote unquote expense ratios are going to look very different than a very large institutional player, big name that we would all know. They're two different things. And just think about it as like your company, or I'm investing in a company in the market that's an industrial company versus a tech company. They're doing two different things. They have two different cost structures. Nonprofits are this blanket category, but they're all doing different things. And so we really have to say, okay, what kind of outcomes are they achieving? It's a wicked problem to figure out. But I think there is obviously some shenanigans in the space where expenses are out of whack for sure. But to say 100% of the money needs to go to the cause is, what about getting talent? How do you recruit talent? How do you have tech and infrastructure to enable that? There's a lot of enabling functions that these nonprofits have. And so that's, from our standpoint, I think we don't opine on that, but since you asked the question, I weigh in as someone who's in the space and look at it and say, that is a misconception that I think people have, and that, but we're not trying to preference one nonprofit or the other. What we're really trying to say is, hey, what interests you? I imagine you might be interested in something related to plants. Is that a fair guess?
Very fair. Yeah, big plant guy.
So if there's a nonprofit that does something there, that might be attractive to you. So it's really trying to take people's passions and intentions and connect them easily. So
I think some of that misconception is loud in the media today because Elon just went in and started up Doge, and he was quoted saying government-funded NGOs are probably the biggest source of fraud. And an NGO, non-government organization, my understanding of what's happening is the government is giving money to these nonprofits, and the nonprofits, some of the nonprofits that Elon's team was uncovering were doing shenanigans with them. What are your thoughts around that?
Certainly not an expert in this area. I'm always one to have an opinion about those things, but I would say, look, there's 1.7 or 1.8 million charities in the U.S. Some of those NGOs are, closely connected to government, doing work abroad. I think it's inevitable that, even large companies have infrastructure and inefficiencies that they're always trying to deal with. So I think I kind of separate a small nonprofit trying to, feed homeless in a community from, other sort of issues. So there may be some of that. It's probably that exists everywhere. But I would say there's 1.8 million doing a lot of good work. Some are more effective than others, but we can't just say a straight rule that their overhead can only be 10%. That's more where I'm coming from on it. Maybe, investing in talent. And I think that's where with these nonprofits, you also have donors who sit on boards as well. So they're helping fundraise and oversee as, sort of fiduciaries for these organizations. So I think, they can, highlight maybe if those inefficiencies exist, that kind of thing. So I would separate it that way.
Let's shift gears a little bit. What role does nature play in your life today?
Well, we're in Boulder, so I can look up every day. I get kind of a glimpse of not the Flatirons, but the foothills, right? And it's a beautiful sight. Running outside, good to get some sunlight. I probably don't spend enough time. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and my mom lives in northern Wisconsin now. So I like to, she lives on a lake, 250-acre lake with 7 places. That is some nice tranquility.
Which lake is that?
It's Lost Canoe Lake outside of Boulder Junction, Wisconsin.
Okay. I grew up in the south suburbs of Chicago. We would vacation frequently to Wisconsin and Michigan. I went to school in Michigan.
Okay. A lot of Illinois license plates driving up the center of the state, but it's good. And
out this way. A lot of people from Illinois move out here.
Oh, tons. So I guess you're a Bears fan and I'm a Packers fan. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I don't watch really sports anymore. I enjoy. It was a fun family trip. We would come out here to ski as a kid. And that's how I learned about Colorado.
Oh, interesting. So, and did you, after college in Michigan, you moved out here?
I did a 10-year career in software sales. That brought me to Chicago. I lived downtown for a while, then out to San Francisco. And then I just backpacked solo backpacked for about a year. And that's how I discovered my passion for plants. And then I came back, took another job and turned my apartment basically into a hydroponic farm just to start to learn about plants. And then I took the jump full time.
Well, your backpacking reminds me when you talk about the role of nature. When I finished grad school, I went to India for a month and then met a guy who I'm still friends with. And he convinced me, hey, go to Nepal with us. So we did a trek up to Annapurna Base Camp, if you've ever been to the Himalayas. That, 3 years ago, my family and I went to Pakistan as well and went to the Himalayas there. And, they have tens of thousands of, we say we have, 10 14ers, whatever.
I think 54 maybe?
Oh, across the country.
Maybe across the country, okay.
Maybe, whatever that is.
I think maybe actually in Colorado.
Is that right?
I think
54.
so.
Okay, so I'll
or something
I'll
around 40, 50.
Okay, so it's orders of magnitude. It's like 100x or almost 1,000x
Wow.
that. It is just like they don't even name 17,000 foot peaks. There's so many, and it is so vast. So like when I was there, that kind of helped put in perspective, and I learned about this. You probably know this this concept, prominence.
Mm-mm.
So it's like the base looking up.
Mm-hmm.
So we're at 5,400, right? But when you go to look at Sanitas, it's maybe 1,000 more, 1,200, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You go to base camp of Nanga Parbat, which is where we hiked to the base camp. We're at about 4,000 meters. It's an 8,000 meter peak. So you can imagine the prominence when you're looking up and saying, wow. So that sort of awe aspect of nature, I think I'm more of a mountain guy, which makes sense. I live in Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
than a water ocean guy, but I like both. And I think, everything in between. And look, we evolved for that. I'm not intentional enough of spending more time in nature. And I think it's good for all of us to do. So there you have it.
What are some of your nature hacks? If you're to kind of give your consult to yourself, how can you bring more nature? How can you maybe take a meeting while also standing out in the sun or walking, or how can you bring more nature in?
It's a great point. So I've tried, there's something about old school phone calls that are pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So being in front of a computer screen all day is not great. So I've started to, even in this heat, it still feels good, take a phone call and walk outside, get some sunshine during the day. So it's somewhere between buildings and the railroad tracks here. So not exactly nature, but it is, it's outside time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would be one. The other is and this is a podcast, we get, I think that I get a lot of inputs. And sometimes it's actually very challenging to say, I'm not going to get those inputs. I crave it.
I'm like
more,
addicted to it. Yeah.
Right? So we were talking about limited device time. That's one thing, but it's like music, just even driving in my car, sometimes I'll say, you know what, I'm going to make it quiet. It's 1 out of 10 times or 1 out of 20. And I think that could serve me well when I'm outside, not listening to a podcast, walking around and, listening to the birds or doing simple things like that. I don't do that enough. And it's all around us. And I think I probably take it for granted way too much, but I try to be intentional. So when you talk about hacks, it's like, how can I just quiet things?
Mm-hmm. If there is one plant that you'd say you're closest to or most interested in or drawn to, what might that plant be?
I went to Joshua Tree, California.
I've never been.
It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just the sight of those are spectacular. I think just in the desert, the color, they all kind of space themselves out, presumably because they can't crowd. They need to, it's like this perfectly spaced thing. And just with the setting, kind of that deserty setting, there's something about, this was probably 4 years ago, there's something about Joshua Tree that really, does that count?
Definitely. That sounds
Okay.
like a magical. I don't know much about that tree or that plant, like
I
what
didn't
families
either.
of. Does it produce fruit? How do people interact with that tree? Do they make teas out of it? Do they, I wonder how people use it. They just stare at it and enjoy it.
I did.
Yeah, right. That's enough.
It's a majestic place. It was really just the whole setting there, I would say. And they stand out in a way in the little colors of purple. I like that color. So maybe that's, but I just,
Very rare
had an
color in
impression.
nature.
Yeah, it had an impression on me.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing growth in a place that seems very inhospitable to it is impressive. When you get a lot of rain, like Michigan or Wisconsin or Illinois, there's a lot of things that grow. The lawn is overgrowing, right? Here we got to really look out for it. It gets scorched in a week.
Yeah.
There, they just flourish.
What did your connection with nature look like as a kid?
That's an interesting question. I mean, I would go up to northern Wisconsin. My hometown of Janesville, Wisconsin, is the city of parks. So we had a good amount of parks. There was like a green belt that was there. So I think, being kind of a, call it suburb, small city, I would say that was something I missed living in cities like New York City.
Mm-hmm.
for 15 years, the concrete jungle. But I think that, I being on a lake and, I didn't really catch many fish, but that experience of tranquility, that stands out for me.
Mm-hmm. Were you climbing trees or riding bikes or playing in the forest, Swiss Family Robinson? That's all me, by the way.
Okay,
I was doing
okay.
all those things.
Yeah, that's impressive. Probably the only one I did of those, well, probably some tree climbing, but bikes, like, I'm, like I said, Gen Xer. I mean, it was like come back by dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
So, ride around with your friends and,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I was a sports guy, so I play a lot of sports. So basketball in particular, that's a lot of gym time, but I was outside a lot, too, doing that. So, but bikes, I think that aspect of being able to kind of go around, and maybe south suburbs of Chicago is similar. You could just go ride your bike and
Yeah, we had a green belt
yeah,
as well. We had
yeah.
forest preserves. That's how I got into mountain biking, very
Okay.
cross country.
Yeah.
But yeah, good time to be in nature.
Totally. So was that, what else did you do in south suburbs?
Well, I grew up right next to a forest, so I could walk out basically the front door and I'd be in a forest.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a kid, we would, I got really into Swiss Family Robinson, just like building tree houses and just doing my best to build tree houses and just nailing logs and or boards into trees and climbing them and making like makeshift harnesses and just doing like what we thought.
Look at you.
Yeah, we had BB guns and we would just kind of like shoot at stuff. We would shoot at and what else do they call it? With that slingshot and yeah, we were just having fun in that kind of just trying to falling over logs or spaceships and just using our creativity. And so now I try to go back to that more today. I mean, we have so many of these ponderosa pines that are really easy to climb. I enjoy climbing them and making tea out of different plants that are around here, specifically the juniper, which is of the cedar family, the sage and the pine. In many Native American traditions, they'll blend those three together. They'll bathe themselves with it. They'll drink it. They'll pray with it. Very cleansing, clearing. So I like to go out, make an offering to these plants, climb them. I have a little electric chainsaw that I'll belt to my hip, clip to my hip, and I'll climb up and I'll just cut off dead branches as well, and just try to interact with the trees and build a relationship with them and get to know them in that kind of a way. I'll collect their sap and then I'll put that on an instant burning coal, and I will use that to like incent my home, to smudge. And indigenous cultures, they believe that wards off ghosts, like negative, dense energy. So I really enjoy doing that. And I enjoy gifting it to people, friends back in Chicago, and spreading it. And it seems like the more I interact with these trees and help them, the more they want to just kind of give me gifts. They want me to be around. They just show themselves more and more, and they become great teachers to me.
By the way, my wife would love that.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah, totally. So how do you tangibly, is it something you feel, or do you tangibly kind of see this from certain trees that you pick out and you do this with?
It's kind of like in my mind's eye. It's like a sense. It's like an intuition, like a knowing. And I've found that working with plants has really helped me to strengthen my own intuition, because it's like, well, I could have all the books on plants, but until I have the plant in my home and I'm seeing how it's doing, I'm like, do I need to give it more or less sun, water, fertilizer, different this, that? Like, what I have to use my intuition to work with these plants. So I like to tell people, if you are trying to work your intuition, especially now as we're coming into like an increasingly AI time where I think people are being robbed of their own intuition, work your intuition, because I believe that's the number one way that God speaks to us, to our soul. Our soul is always speaking to us, and it's through our intuition, number one. Number two, through our dreams, and then through synchronicities, and then through like, we got to bump you on the head, and you got to get in like you got to fall over and scrape your knee of like, hey, you got to really listen. We're trying to keep you in the right timing and the right way, and we're trying to help you out here. But yeah, it's a bit of a knowing, and then it will physicalize itself by showing me more. Just last weekend I was in Paonia. If you spent much time out in that area, really beautiful, tons of orchards, just world-class orchards. The Palisade peaches, they have those in that area too. Just a lot of just good fruit trees. And there's these juniper forests out there, and I spend a lot of time in the juniper. That's my favorite forest in Colorado, is the juniper forest, this specific one in Paonia. And I go out often and camp there and just spend days just to get like clear in my head and where am I going with this, just to get just clarity. And the more time I spend out there, the more it just presents me gifts. And that could be like this antler, one of the trees presented me. I was cutting off some branches. I was way up in the tree, cutting off branches, being super safe. And one of the branches just falls, and I see it land like right on top of this thing. And I'm like, I was like, okay, that's a gift for me. That's beautiful. Or the sap that it does, or feathers, or just these different knowings, just these different like, I don't know. For me, I just find it to be very healing and centering and calming, and I feel more like myself. Everything's so simple when you're just in the forest.
Yeah.
It's like trying to set up this camera was like the most complicated thing ever. But cutting down dead branches in the forest and collecting sap to do like beautiful little ceremonies with. I'm like, it's so simple. Nature is so simple, and we're in partnership with it. And my knowing is that they are our allies, our friends, our teachers, our guides. They bring us medicine, they bring us food, they bring us shelter. There's like so much to us, and yet we're separate. We're increasingly separated from them because maybe they're just not as addictive as scrolling Instagram.
Hallelujah to that, my friend.
Yeah. So nature is, and you've been a leader for a long time, and in many ways in a bit of a public way, especially when you were the president of, was it Kendall University?
Kendall College, yeah.
Kendall College, and that was part of that larger group. There's about 70 universities.
That's right.
Do you think nature has something to teach us about leaderships, the different systems that maybe we're using within these organizations or even within the home, about resilience? Can you speak to any of the overlap of teachings that you're aware of through nature that you've experienced, and how that has supported you in your personal professional life?
Well, you look at, I was in Mexico a few months ago, and there was a cactus or a plant growing on the side of rocks, nothing else around. So you say to yourself, how does it do that? Why there? How? Nothing else. So to your point about nature, it's simple, yet it is incredibly impressive what it does. And so you can think about, that unexpected sight in a place you wouldn't expect it. I think that's maybe one aspect. I don't know how that necessarily connects to leadership, but it does maybe connect to building business and thinking about it. But
it's almost like resilience. Anything is possible.
I mean,
how does a tree grow out of a rock?
How?
It's like,
right?
Good for you. That's an awesome tree.
Right? I mean, props.
Yeah.
So you see things like that, and they stand out to me.
Do you ever find yourself interacting with those types of plants? Do you ever see yourself just interacting with plants, I suppose, in general? A plant like that, I might go up to it and say something to it like, hey, nice job. How did you do that? Can I get some type of a sense teaching of it? I'm in this practice of trying to communicate with plants. Just because they don't speak English doesn't mean that we can't communicate or offer them some water or offer them something. You ever find yourself...
Well, I should have done that, actually. So we had one at our house, and it wasn't faring well, but every day I would raise the blinds and make sure that it was getting sun, because our house this window is like west, got a little bit of southern sunlight. So I would try to, I would raise the blinds intentionally for the tree, but I should have said, or for the plant, I should have said, hey, I'm doing this for you. I'm thinking about you. I didn't say that. I just thought it in my mind. Then my wife took it to her office, and she says she was bragging just a couple of days ago how it's flourishing there. So apparently I wasn't doing enough, and I think she does that much better than I. But I think,
or maybe even asking it the question of what it needs.
That's a great question.
Versus like, hey, I'm going to scorch you in this sun for you.
Exactly.
It's like, no, I need that shade and water, buddy.
Exactly. Maybe I was assuming based on what I thought, and I should have done that. Yeah. So I think even if kind of what you're saying is, even by that conversation with the plant, you're interrogating your own thoughts there's value in that. So I think a lot in my head, but I think voicing it and communicating and using something living to do it, that's an interesting thing I haven't tried. So I'm going to take that away from this conversation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just meditate around a plant, meditate underneath
Yeah.
a tree, and
Yeah.
with in a consistent way, and just ask for it to speak. And I found that it has. I mean, it's not like a voice. It's not. It's that could maybe be my ego, but there's like these known sense, just these knowings that just pop into my head. And where do any of our ideas come from? I think they come from God, and I think nature is so clean that it's like a very clean vessel for God to speak to us.
Well, we have an aspen in our front yard. We have 2 tall trees. One's an aspen. It's about 27 years old. Our house. And I looked around. I was like, oh, this is the tallest one here. And I'm like, you're bringing it, Aspen. So I should probably, say, hey, you're doing great. Just go straight. Don't, try not to go into the house. I could ask. I could put some requests in and ask it for some wisdom.
And try offering it something as well.
Yeah.
In indigenous culture, there has to be a contract. That you can't get something for nothing. I think that might be there's a bit of an issue I see in our society today of just going into nature and just like taking it, like this is mine, or this is my tree, this is my whatever. But the plant can't fully unlock. This is indigenous wisdom. Can't fully unlock all of its gifts if you don't offer it something as well. And in their culture, that's cornmeal or tobacco. You can also just offer it some water. It really wants water, and then it can open up even more to us when we give to it.
Well, I like that in that it's the human principle of reciprocity, right? It's timeless. It's built into how we interact, and why not extend it out a little bit? I like that.
What does self-care look like for you today?
It's always a process. I don't think there.
You seem very healthy to me. You seem fit, very clear-eyed.
Oh,
yeah. You've got a good energy about you.
Well, thank you. Look, it's always a process. I don't think there's shortcuts. A book that impacted me I read it about 5 years ago, James Clear, Atomic Habits. It's just starting with small things and building behaviors around it. And look, he popularized that concept, but there's others that's written about it. So I think I don't look at something and say, I'm going to do something once and that's it. So, and I think in some cases there's science around some of these things, but about that time, 5 years ago, Wim Hof's book came out, if you know the Dutchman. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start doing cold showers. And we got the Rocky Mountain cold here, so it's pretty good. And then I just went full cold showers all the time.
For how long?
Like 3 minutes. The great thing about it is that, look, I use less water. I don't need heat. So if the heat was ever out, I'm like, it doesn't faze me. When I went to Annapurna 20 plus years ago, it was like the few times I was able to shower, it was cold because it was up in the Himalayas. It would have been like nothing, right? So I think it creates a little bit of a mental toughness. I think it, if you're familiar with Anna Lemke, Dr. Anna Lemke, she's a Stanford psychiatrist. She wrote a book, I think it would resonate with you, Dopamine Nation, and talks about the pleasure-pain balance. And so it's like, I look at it like, hey, if I'll start the day in the win category, create a little intentional pain. It's just cold water, but it's like, it doesn't really become easy. You every time I'm like, oh, get ready, and I do it. So I would say that's one version. Then about a year and a half ago, I went to an event and we did some Wim Hof breathing. And I haven't really been a meditation guy. I'm sensing that you've done that or do it.
On and off.
Yeah. So, and people talk about the benefits of it. I just look at it. To me, it's kind of like if you're doing intensive breathing and then you're doing a breath hold. The way I think about it in my mind is it's almost like interval training. But so it's active. And I find that doing that, I feel ready for the day. And then my wife actually just got me Pulsetto, which it vibrates in the vagus nerve. So again, I've been doing that for 2 weeks. I guess
What's
that was
that
Father's
about?
Day. The vagus nerve, sort of relaxing it. I'm not an expert on kind of like what how
But
it.
it's like a wearable, like it's
Oh
like
yeah,
a
it's just like a little
machine.
device, and
Oh,
it just
okay.
sends vibrations
Oh,
right here.
wow.
You do
Okay.
it for 5 minutes,
Huh.
and that's completely passive. But
And it's calming.
my wife just asked me this morning, "How's it going?" I'm like, I don't look at these things as, oh, I I notice a difference. I view it as, let me create a habit around this, and I think the benefits will scaffold. And I just think it's just like you go work out once, you don't get the benefits. It's about creating the behaviors, and so that's why I look. I don't think there's silver bullets. I'm not sure I believe anyone would say, yeah, do this once, that's it.
Agreed.
Um,
No one's going to the gym and lifting all the weights one day and then
no,
they're huge.
yeah, it's just you start and you're like, oh, I can barely lift 15 pounds. And then you stay at it, you say, oh, I can lift 15 pounds, 10 reps, 20 reps. Like it's that consistency. That's the key thing. So I think that's my trying to get sleep. No, I don't always succeed at, but I think this has been something, as you know, more recently, people, it's valuing the importance of sleep and for just brain health, stress, everything. Like, so I would say trying to be, when I was younger, I don't think I valued it like I do now. So those would be some things.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
What are my small habits that add up?
Yeah, or yeah, like you said, self-care, right? I think was the origin.
Yeah, I'm kind of like all in or all out on different things. I have different habits that come through. Wim Hof
Yeah.
was a habit for a while, especially when I was around some friends where we were consistent in that kind of a way and jumping into like Ebb and G and it's like you got to
Sure.
do it or you're
Yeah.
gonna get like super humbled.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Yep.
I would say today I wake up and make a really big breakfast.
Mm.
That's something I really enjoy with my girlfriend. We spend like an hour and a half in the morning together, just making
Mm-hmm.
breakfast and then sitting out on the patio. I live in North Boulder up Linden a little bit. So I've
Oh
got a
yeah.
great view out like over Boulder
Mm-hmm.
a bit. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a great
like,
area.
yeah, so that's really nice. Start the day in that kind of way. And then I'll do a cold shower as well, but I'll go like hot, cold, hot. But I'm inspired by you to move back in the cold. I
You
try to do,
got it. You got it in you.
yeah. I've done it. It's just like I need sometimes you need like a little push or a little reminder, or like, oh yeah, that's a thing, and it feels so good when
Yeah.
I do it. And it
Yeah.
is. I find that it's really good to have me do hard things in the morning.
Yeah.
I'll go into a workout and I'm like, okay, the hardest part of the day is over. Now it's all
Mm-hmm.
just wins. Definitely a lot of protection around my sleep. I've got all red lights in my room, so it looks like my girlfriend laughs. It's
Yeah.
like it's like a full-on brothel in
Yeah.
here. But it's like there's to keep the circadian rhythm in a
Yeah.
good way. If we got
Yeah.
blue light, like our screens just interface until the moment we fall asleep, that does throw off the body and we don't get as good as sleep. I've kind of like EMF proofed my house. So I've got like a little machine that can see where there's all types of spikes of energy,
Mm-hmm.
like dirty energy and things like that. A lot of water, electrolytes, just really clean food. I eat all organic. I think the food's a huge part of it.
Mm-hmm.
All the meat that I get, all the protein really is coming from Golden Hoof. Have you ever been to that farm out just a little bit East Boulder? All regenerative. It's just like, man, the difference, especially in meat, can drop off so quickly. And when it's done in such a clean way, it's a little bit more expensive, but totally worth it. It's like the difference between Golden Hoof meat or their eggs or their cheese or their milk or anything like that is what's like the second best place you can buy, like Costco or Whole Foods. It's like night and day. So I would highly recommend investing in Golden Hoof products for your family. And then I get like all my vegetables either from the farmer's market or from Costco. But yeah, I'm a believer. My company, Be Micro, kind of founded on that thought that it's the small things that add up, and don't really worry about trying to take all the bad things out. They'll naturally drop away as you just sneak in more positive things. And how can we help people consistently get more of these positive things? And one thing is vegetables, and really not any fault to I don't know, people today that they're not eating enough vegetables. It's just that vegetables have about a quarter the amount of nutrients they had just 80 years ago. mostly because of soil depletion, but also GMOs and them being shipped from really far away, and they lose a lot of nutrients through shipping and that kind of a way. So this is a phase, and I'd like to gift you one of these now.
Thank you.
Actually, we have two versions. That one
Yep.
is powder, and then the one below in the tin is in the whole leaf form. I recommend the whole leaf form, but the powders typically parents are buying it if they really want to sneak it into their kids, whatever, mac and cheese, pizza, extra
Yep.
sneaky.
Yep.
1 teaspoon is equal to 1 cup of leafy greens. And do you have any experience with microgreens? Have you
Yeah.
got-
Well, so you literally sound like my wife. I mean, she's a master's in nutrition, but I'm a free rider because she'll get the high quality food. She does do the red lights, not as many as you have. The EMFs all over it. So she'll love listening to this. And we have done that, but I think I just haven't seen it around the house. So I think we'll get that going again. The microgreens and the salads, because we pretty well. But again, I don't have to worry about it because she's always looking at the brands and doing that, or tells me, hey, get the X, Y, or Z. I love that actually you take a lot of time for breakfast. I think it's something that, it's a way to enjoy life. I know there's a lot of, I don't know if it's still a trend, but intermittent fasting, people skip the breakfast. I love breakfast too.
Me too. I can't put on enough weight, so I'm
Yeah,
just
you're
I'm not-
lucky. I'm trying to manage it, but no, that's good. I mean, but just enjoying it and that experience. It's great that you do that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I would say most breakfasts are duck eggs from Golden Hoof. Unbelievable.
look at that.
Unbelievable. I can't even believe. And ducks do really well here in Colorado. There's ducks,
Okay.
they're natively here. Sweet potato. If I were to only be able to eat one vegetable, maybe it would be sweet potato. I don't think it's a vegetable. Maybe it's like it's a potato, a tuber. And then some sauerkraut, some type of fermented something, some cheese, green tea, a lot of water.
Look at you.
What's breakfast look like for you?
So I was a big egg guy, and then the cholesterol got high. And then people have kind of gone back and forth on this because the yolk's the best part. I tell my kids, hey, I'm eating the egg whites because my cholesterol is high. It did make a difference for me, but I have it. I have it every day, but I love the yolk. And maybe I'd love duck eggs from here, from that up farm, even better. But I'll do that, or maybe like a chicken sausage. Sometimes a smoothie if I'm feeling ambitious. This would probably work perfect in one of those.
Yeah, or on your eggs, just don't cook it. So once you've plated the pizza, pasta, eggs, then you put 1 teaspoon per person on. That's it. One of those tins is equal to like a whole big tray of microgreens. There's no beating fresh anything, but since they're just babies, they're just like 10, 12-day-old baby vegetables, they go bad really quickly. They don't transport. So this is all freeze-dried. It's USDA organic, regenerative organic, just done in a really good way, lab tested for lots of good things. So it's an easy way to get a lot of vegetables in, but the number one benefit for me, I'm like a bit of a biohacker, is it's very detoxifying. It's the most powerful fuel to help the body produce its own antioxidants. We have an antioxidant factory in us, and that's what's in this cruciferous vegetables. It's a blend of broccoli, radish, and red cabbage is the most powerful fuel for the body to produce its own antioxidants, which are good because they get rid of poison.
Is the detoxification for you perceptible?
I have it every day, so it's hard for me to perceive it. But we do get a lot of customers reporting hey, we feel it, and they get I've always really wanted to sell an addictive product. So for some people, the only thing that I take right now that I can feel because it's new to me is raw liver. Have you ever had raw liver?
I may have, but it doesn't stand out. Maybe if I did, I would remember. I may have had cooked liver, but yeah.
So raw liver. So in nature, like when a wolf pack takes down an elk or something, the alpha wolf gets to eat first, and the thing that he eats is the liver. Okay. That's considered the most nutrient-dense part of the animal, and very high in iron, but lots of other vitamins and minerals as well. So what I do, back to Golden Hoof, please sponsor me or give me a discount on some of your product. They're phenomenal.
You're a power user.
Yeah, I'm a power user. I was just at the farm for their solstice kind of gathering last week, and big fan of them. What they're doing is not easy work, and they're really masterful with it. So I will buy either venison or beef liver.
Mm.
It comes frozen there, and it's all in the honor system. You just go in their place, and there's nobody working there, and you just ring yourself out, and it's just like an unbelievable.
Oh, I love that.
It's unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be a member, but it's like $100 a year, and what else? So then I will defrost the liver, and I'll chop it into cubes that are small enough where I can just like swallow it, because it's unchewable. You cannot chew it; it's rubber. And then I'll just I'll then put on parchment paper a bunch of those cubes into glass Tupperware, and then I'll just break off a couple cubes when I remember to. But that's the only thing that I feel. It's like very rare to be able to take anything and feel it. But when I take raw liver, I feel it.
Interesting. Well, one thing that stood out to me was that the alpha wolf eats food first. You know, typically in leadership, you'd say, I go last, right? So it's interesting how it works in the animal kingdom, and they're probably towing a lot of weight with what they do. But that was interesting that you said that.
How do you think about leadership? How has your kind of opinion on leadership evolved, and what's your what's maybe like your style with it today?
So I would go back in the time machine and say what has influenced me the most was peer leadership, going from middle school all the way through college, my first job, because the only authority you have is your ability to influence and lead by example. I think that's very powerful. I mean, look, we can all improve. There's many ways I could do better, but I think that basic principle has stood with me for a long time, because when you have the authority, I think it's much more effective to not have to and I would make a distinction between, authoritative as, maybe being decisive or taking control in certain situations, but even in peer context, sometimes that's needed and people welcome it.
So leading by example.
It's leading by example, but it's also understanding the power of influence. So it's not decision by committee, okay? Because I would always be clear, like I think back, you mentioned Kendall College, it was, look, I have the decision on this, but I want the input. Help me make the best decision. I have found, obviously there's some tough calls I've had to do along the way where people don't have the contacts, and that's where, leadership can be lonely, and that's why you have board and other confidants that you talk to about it. But I think I have found people, if they understand as much context as you could give them and have the opportunity to provide input, but understand that, like in certain situations, I have the decision, I find that to be pretty effective most of the time. It's worked. And and you find people that are committed to what the business is doing, whatever it is. I found, like, when I left finance and I went to higher education, it was a very different sort of ethos, because people care about outcomes for students, sort of knowledge creation, getting people sort of ready for the professional world. That's a very different thing than working on Wall Street. Not to say one is better than the other, it's just different. And so you realize, like, what motivates people is actually different. It's not maybe a bonus at the end of the year. It's how they're contributing. It's if you were to review a faculty member, say, hey, how you're doing, they care more about the student surveys. They don't care about what an administrator would think as much. That, to me, that's their focus is in the right place. It's how am I impacting the students and how they perceive what I'm doing in the classroom. So, different sectors bring different things, but I get inspired by people who are aligned to what the company's doing. And I'm sure you find at your company, like you're making a cool product, people value nutrition and what you do. And I'm sure that makes it easier, right? It's like, what are we about? And you select those types of people that are passionate about it. Do you find that?
Most of the company is outsourced. So I started as the growing, and then the freeze drying, and then the manufacturing, and the fulfilling, and everything. And now it's all of that is now outsourced because there's other people that are just way better at it. And I had built a little factory here full of freeze dryers, and microgreens were dropped off daily, and we would just process it and do it.
Yeah.
And now I focus just on marketing, because if people don't know that this product exists, then it doesn't exist.
Totally.
And it's the number one spot that I was getting scammed in business. It's just because anybody could say, I could run that ad, or I know how to do this or that, or just be patient, or the algorithm
Yep.
change. There's
Yep.
all these excuses, and it's just so easy to lie in marketing, unfortunately.
Yep.
So I'm like, I gotta get good at this, because this is, and then it's gonna help me to create the next brand that much faster and stand up more brands. And now I'm starting to partner and invest in other brands as well. And really, it's just the superpower is marketing, because it's kind of, everybody's got a good product. If you don't have a good product, it's like good luck. But it's like, if you're competing, you've got a good product. Everyone's got a good product. It's like, how do you just get in front of the customer and tell the story in a good way? And that's part of the practice. So I'm just practicing, just doing that here.
That's great. Well, and you said Boulder's a Silicon Valley of food.
Yeah, natural products.
Natural
industry,
products. Yeah. I mean, it's true. So, is the production here then?
It's on the East Coast now.
Oh, it is. Okay. So obviously there's people that have refined that process, and you say, here's how you have to do it. So,
oh yeah, and they've got a multi-million-dollar farm. The whole thing's first class.
Interesting.
Yeah, and with that we were able to pick up the USDA organic certification, regenerative organic certification. We've just expanded into capsules. Now we can just be more and more innovative too, which has freed up a lot of time. Most of my team that I work with on the day-to-day is around marketing. I've got 4 or 5 editors. I've got 2 marketing consultants. I've got 1 full-time marketing person. We just really spend most of the time on marketing. That's the thing to get good. It's like, okay, we made the product, figured out how to do it real good. Yeah, we'll bring more products to market, but it's like, how do we let people know about it in a good way that's exciting and fun to do? And so took the leap and built out this studio, rented a studio, and just how can I invest more and more into marketing in an organic way? Because we also run ads, but the slippery slope with running Facebook ads is you can feel like you're just in business to give Facebook money and they don't care about you. You can write them a $50,000 check and they won't even pick up the phone for you, which feels kind of gross. So to me, it's like, I'm just all about organic marketing, and there's benefit to running ads on all these different platforms, but how can I create as much organic content as possible?
Totally resonates. It's also interesting because I'm sure your team, though, you believe in the product. It's really easy to market it. It's really easy to talk about it because you believe in it.
It can be, and it's also something that I've been doing for so long that it can get challenging to talk about the same thing for 6 years. So that's where it's fun is, okay, now we've got a new thing, we've got a new study. Early on, I did invest into a lot of lab tests because I'm like, are these microgreens really that good? There's no testing out there. It's like the government, universities aren't doing these testing. One of the most renowned doctors, scientists, professors in the country is here around microgreens, is here in Colorado. The guys that invented the NRF2 test, which is like our kind of very final test, our biggest test. That's this pathway that helps us to produce our own antioxidants. That's like the gold standard. They're here. So all these things just started showing up, and it's been more of like a like what is important. It's like the network's really important, but also like trusting, like just going out there and working hard and trusting that these good things will show up too. Like I'm in the game. I guess my whole thing is like, how do I just stay in the game? Because if I burn out, or if I, stop doing my little habits, I'm not in the game anymore, then it's like, I'm part of like team good guys here. And I don't want to be on the bench. I want to be in the game. Yeah.
Well, you're right. I mean, it is a lot of managing energy, right? Because it's I ran in high school a bit, right? So it's like, what race are you running? The 100 meters, you're going all out. And sometimes you have to do that. Like maybe when you're launching a new one, it's getting the production ready. But other times it's like, hey, this is 26 miles or a half marathon. I got to pace it. I feel good on mile 1. Wait till I'm at mile 11, right? Because I've done those races. A lot of people in Boulder have. So,
have you experienced that within your career? Where there's moments where you're like, oh, I'm approaching burnout?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, when I was an investment banker for almost 9 years, and I felt it. I started feeling it because I think you need that intersection of I really love what I do, and I did. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't. I felt that it wasn't where I was going to be long run. So that just starts to chip away. You get some client says, I want to launch a deal on Friday. You're launching on Monday. You're working over the weekend. Now, the more senior you get, the less, office time you have with that. But I think that whole cycle, you have to kind of love deals in that environment. So I think it's also matching what excites a person. And so it's finding that intersection of what gets me out of bed, what's exciting, keeping it novel to your point, right? But also the part that I realize is you get a long way in terms of understanding something. Call it the 80-20 rule, right? So like I can get to 80%, but it's that last 20% that's a lot of effort and expertise that you built up that, can be a bit of a grind, right, to get there. So I think,
and that's the differentiator, and you have to get there.
Well, just if you think about anything to talk about this and be an expert in this space, it doesn't take much to get to 80. It takes a lot less to get to the 80th percentile of knowledge. It's that last 20%, like going from 95 to 99. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of nuance. And it's a lot of I think what differentiates people in a space really kind of understanding, like that expert you talked about.
Microgreens, yeah.
Here. I mean, it's a lot of training, but you also, I try to read and do other things, watch sports. That to me is kind of, a release, because you're right. It just, it's doing the same thing over and over can also, you got to manage your energy around that too, keeping it novel. So I would say it's all those things.
What keeps you passionate about the work that you're doing today? Where does your inspiration come from?
I love this Steve Jobs quote. I think he said something like, you can only connect the dots looking backwards. I grew up with two public servants, county judge, mom was a teacher, counselor. So service was kind of like in the ethos. You don't know that. They don't say that this is what you do. It's all about example, right? It's what you see. So for me, I think that being able to sort of have a larger impact, like just take my company last year. We sent out $90 million of checks to charities. That was a pretty cool thing to see. Obviously, it's the donor's money, but being able to facilitate that's impact. So I think that's what, inspires me. And then all the innovation that's still yet to come. There's a lot of innovation that I think we just haven't, the wave is not even close to crested yet. And that's exciting. So I kind of look around the corner and say, hey, we have to do the fundamentals right. There's a lot of cool stuff to come.
This podcast is brought to you by Be Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at BeMicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save. Big thanks to Mother-in-Law's Kimchi, my absolute favorite kimchi company. I'm not just saying that, I actually buy and eat this kimchi all the time. Quick story, I was recently road tripping. I was eating out a lot and my stomach was not happy. I stopped at my local Whole Foods, grabbed a jar of Mother-in-Law's. I go for the Napa cabbage, ate a few spoonfuls in the parking lot, and my stomach felt much better shortly after. Their kimchi is packed with pre and probiotics, and they're the only brand I know that still ferments their kimchi at ambient temperatures for that deep umami flavor. It tastes great. You can find Mother-in-Law's at Sprouts, Whole Foods, HEB, and many more. Sometimes I'll just eat a bunch. I don't know what the serving size is. That is good. Grab yourself one today.
If someone's giving for the first time, maybe they just came into money, how should they think about giving it in a good way?
It's a great question. I think that something, at least 90% of philanthropy is personal. It's probably near close to 100%. Why? Because something happened in our life to a family member, or we experienced personally, or someone we're close to says, support X, Y, or Z, and sort of brings us in the fold. So there's a lot of that out there, but I would say kind of the way that, my co-founder and Giving Place before, Jeff Grossman, I would always talk about it is just like software. The way software works is you release something, you iterate on it. You start with a minimum viable product. You don't overbuild. And I would say the same way to think about philanthropy is start with a few things, see what works, start small. You don't have to do big checks and big multi-year gifts or, funded building. I mean, if that's what people want to do, great. If that's what they know, but if they don't know, experimentation is okay. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of refine it, have conversations. I think something that, what software doesn't replace is having conversations with grantees and what they're up to and what they're doing. So getting out there and having those conversations, and some people, that's not their thing. And that's fine. But so I would say start small, iterate, refine, and then as you sort of find your sea legs, then we see people, expanding the check size or focusing on certain areas so they get more impact.
How do you think about business, corporations, and philanthropy? In my space in natural products, there's a lot of 1% for the planet. There's
Mm-hmm.
how do you think about corporations tying part of their work to philanthropy?
Largely, I mean, I can't get into the minds of all companies, but I think it's probably a way to engage their team members that they're doing more, because if your business is doing something and it's not exactly that, I think people want to feel connected to impact. And like I said earlier, it's a generational thing. So I would say, it depends on the company, but I think certainly more and more space within companies to be philanthropic, or to at least facilitate it. I think that is, it already has been a trend, but I could see that growing. Some companies, they'll do volunteer things. It's a way to build community with, their team members, but it's also a way to get out in the community too. So it can serve both. I mean, when I was at Laureate Education, we would have senior executive meetings, but we would also have like a community thing that we would do. It's a great bonding experience.
Mm-hmm. And typically, at my girlfriend's work, they'll
Mm-hmm.
they'll give her, I think like 3 or 4 days, maybe a year, to just go and just do it however you want. You don't have to do it with like your team members at work,
Yep.
but you're like, oh, I'm out here and I'm just gonna do this. I'm pick my own thing to do.
You know what? And that flexibility is great too. And I think it's really activating people's own passions is ultimately the most sustainable thing, right? What am I interested in? So I think I like that approach.
Do you think companies should wait to do initiatives like that until they're profitable, or can they start giving even before that?
Well, certainly founders can do pledge 1%. So they
Hmm.
could say, I'll do 1% of my equity. So that's something you can do even prior to there being any value or liquidity. So committing to it. There are a lot of things we can do for free, right? Company funds don't need to be spent on. It's more about time. And I think it's hard work. So creating a little bit of space for something else, I think, again, what's the race, right? Is that a way to recover? Is that a way to create connection with people that's different than doing a firm outing and firm funds?
Do you think that the customer really cares if a company is philanthropic?
I'd like to think, uh, and my idealist side says yes, but I think fundamentally they have a business to run,
Hmm.
and people better be serving that first and foremost. So I would say that's always the most important thing: servicing the customer in the way that they need to be serviced.
We talked about a little bit of kind of some waste, fraud uh, in this space. Are there any other misconceptions outside of, we touched on, what did we say, the administrative fees being like way out of
Mm-hmm.
whack? And sure, that might be true with some, but there's reasons, because they're a startup and they don't have the infrastructure, and then they're getting to an efficient place. Are there any other misconceptions in the world in this space?
I would just say let me say observations that I see. I think a lot of people will start 501c3 charities, and there's a certain period of time where you have to meet the public support test. 40, I think it's 40% of your donors have to diverse set of donors, so it can't just be, one big donor or a few big donors. That effectively is what a private foundation is.
Hmm.
It's sort of concentrated funders. So people get passionate about a cause. They go through the work of creating a 501c3, probably underestimate the work that's required to like just administratively do it. And there's alternatives out there. So there's 501c3s called fiscal sponsors, where people can go raise money for causes, or you could start a program within an organization with a similar cause. I just think that's leverage their infrastructure, go raise money and find, a researcher or someone kind of doing the thing that you're interested in, rather than creating a whole organization. I'm not trying to squelch entrepreneurial spirit, because all of these organizations came out of that. But, I there also is other, maybe people bite off more than they can chew. And I have friends that said, oh, we started a charity and it's a lot of work. And I said, oh, there's another way to do it. So I would say that's one observation. The second one that's very interesting to me is you see companies getting acquired and merging all the time. All the time. You don't really see it in the nonprofit space. And I'm always mystified by, hey, can't you do more and combine resources? I haven't ever gotten a good sense of why that is, but I think it's, again, like if you put, hey, I'm the founder, or maybe I don't want to say it's ego, but put that aside. How can we have more impact? To me, that's, if we put that first and foremost, I think combining resources can help, because then it solves some of these issues that we were talking about. You can get a better infrastructure at a lower cost. So those are some observations I have.
Yeah, interesting. I've not heard of, I don't follow the nonprofit space very much, but I fell into that trap on the first one. I started a 501c3.
Okay.
Because it's like, how do you, I wanted to have another vehicle really for communication, because as I started as a food company and now a supplement company, because I can speak a little bit more freely as a supplement company if you can substantiate the claims, but you still can't speak as freely as you want, whereas a nonprofit can speak much more freely. So I started a nonprofit. Be Micro supports the nonprofit called IFA, International Functional Food Association. It's really just education. We got a Google grant, which was really good, where we get $10,000 of ad spend per month, which is like pretty significant, that we use to promote. Just basically we're putting out blogs and content and that kind of a way. Nobody really wants to hear Be Micro talk about Be Micro. So IFA will talk about Be Micro will talk about IFA. They kind of support each other in that kind of a way. But I'm like, whoa, this was like a pretty big undertaking. But that's also a great lesson, kind of just like practice in how to build teams and how to, just bring in more leaders and I'm hearing there's another way though.
Well, it's an interesting use case that you're talking about, and certainly you did it with intention. And it's interesting because you don't want you're saying that you want IFA to be able to talk about Be Micro, but there may be another nonprofit, or was another nonprofit food organization where, hey, can we run this program in here? So IFA brought by such and such. Or there's fiscal sponsors where you can leverage their 501c3 status and do it. That's what I'm saying. There
if
are
it's
other
for
ways.
sale, everything's for sale. Actually, if you're interested in anything we're talking about here today, it's for sale.
Yeah, it's just that's why the space is so interesting, because it's just people don't know about it, understandably so. So.
Yeah, it's fun to create these organizations, these vehicles, and see how. So Be Micro is a Delaware-based C Corp. For this podcast and this media company that I'm creating, it's a Colorado LLC. For IFA, it's a Colorado 501c3. It's interesting to just have these different vehicles, and it's just a learning, but it certainly can be a lot to manage.
Well, yeah. Plus, there's things like Colorado unemployment tax you have to pay and manage those things. Those are all things I learned starting a business. We were the Delaware C Corp too. You have to, if there's.
It's your only controllable tax.
Yeah.
Your unemployment tax, because it can vary. I don't know what the high and the low is, but it's the only tax that really changes.
Yep.
Yeah, lots of different things. I used to sell payroll. That was my first.
First
one.
Okay.
So I'm deep in the in the employee tax kind of standpoint. Are there transparency or accountability features in your platform, or that you're thinking about building in to help donors feel confident that their giving is actually driving impact?
So we also partner with third parties. So we work with both Charity Navigator and GuideStar. So they're kind of, GuideStar is the largest. They basically leverage the IRS database, but they layer on some other analytics on that. And Charity Navigator is related and similar. So I would say they do really good work. It is a measuring outcomes and impact. There's another one that great admiration for, mission measurement. They They have the impact genome. So they've tried to say, hey, a dollar spent gets this amount. There's a cost per outcome that you're getting. Like you're essentially buying out a social outcome. Uh, so I think people are doing a lot of good work there. What we found, going back to my earlier point, philanthropy, if you're going to donate to your local church, how do you measure impact or outcome there? I have a relationship. I see what they're doing with my own eyes. I know them. I know what kinds of stuff they're doing. I don't need they might communicate in church or, in a newsletter, kind of the things that they're doing.
We fed these homeless people. We built this well.
All of this, it's very visible. Or I'm trying to support, like we're going to build a new building, like where my mom lives. That's what they were doing. So those things. So I don't know how you measure impact or social outcome. Like how do you measure that? So it's a challenging issue. It depends on. Then you could say one organization that's similar to another. How are they doing that? But you still have to kind of measure it in the same way. Are we getting kids to go to college? What's the graduation? Is it 4 years? Is it 6? How do you measure that? So it starts to. So I would say it's the wicked problem next to how do you get electronic payments to nonprofits? that's another.
Why is that so complicated?
You tell me. I mean, PayPal probably signed up in their HyperWatt program, which was next day payment, maybe 300,000 charities. There's a long tail. I've talked to, if you talk to other players in the space that have done similar things, you get to about 300,000. And then after that, it's, so we have charities sometimes we send paper checks to because they don't get e-payments and they don't cash them. Shocking, but it happens. So I would say that's another thorny problem that I think, I think about a lot. But impact is that's a hard one, and I think there are good ways to think about. But I would say those two are ones that no one's quite solved.
So when you and your family are donating time, resource, where does the passion? What type of organizations do you and your kind of family find yourselves gravitating towards? Who are you helping?
So my oldest daughter's 12. For her, it was nature, planet type things. So, and I'd say, hey, well, we'll send a check on your behalf. So that was for her. For me, it was I have always been interested in education. So that would be an area, human capital. That's an area that's interesting to me. And I would say my wife is, you two would probably overlap in the types of nonprofits you'd be interested in hearing about what you're talking about. So, but it's actually, I think we could do more around service. And we've traveled. Like my youngest daughter had turned 5 in Islamabad 3 years ago when we went there. So the way I see it is like travel to sort of unconventional places, have unconventional experiences, see how other people live and experience other cultures. I think those things also have lasting impact. And at least that's my travels have done that. So I think that may spark a passion of giving back too. They're still young, but I think, so it's kind of living those things.
Are there any philanthropists or individuals that really inspire you from the ways that they have give or do give?
It might sound cliche. I think the Gates Foundation is incredibly impressive. How they think about it, talk about measuring impact, and really focusing on certain areas and moving the needle. I have from afar, I have incredible admiration for the sophistication, the work that they do, the focus, the team that they've hired, how they've just gone about it. And I give someone like Warren Buffett credit for saying, I'm going to entrust my funds to someone else to do it. So I just think that there are critics out there. For me, I just look at it and say, it's amazing work and their heart's in the right place and they're doing good stuff.
So does the criticism for the Gates Foundation come around in a potentially in a mass of too much influence, that it's such a huge, powerful fund that they can, and they're a top donor to say, WHO, the World Health Organization, and they might have influence over how their, I don't know, that organization is voting or communicating with the world.
I think that's right. I think I'm not one for conspiracies. I think some of that persists out there. And, look, I just look at, if you read the evidence and you look at what they're doing, I would say I'm impressed by how they approach philanthropy and how they're stewards of the wealth.
So that organization, that is who a lot of wealthy people, the Bill Gates Foundation, that's who a lot of wealthy people like Warren Buffett have pledged like 99% of their wealth to. Any other names that you're aware of that have?
There is the
that
giving
list?
pledge. Look, I think they can't take it with it when they when they
And
leave.
when they give it to their kids, it
Yeah.
seems like it doesn't really work out that good for the kids.
Look, there's a huge, and this goes back to the trend we talked about earlier. What's happening in wealth? I haven't read the book, but I know many who have. And there's a book called Die with Zero. It's about creating experiences and using your wealth while you're alive, and facilitating experiences with family members on that. I hear a lot more, certainly generational trusts and trust in estate attorneys that business is flourishing. But there's a lot of people like Warren Buffett who said, all right, you get 5 million, the rest is on you. And so I think that is definitely totally changed in the zeitgeist. So and that bodes well for philanthropy, because I think people see that as it can be taxed or given away. And they might say, hey, maybe I could give it away and focus on things that I care about or am passionate about, or kind of see it do good.
How does that work? I don't really. And you say it could be taxed or given
Or
away.
just inheritance tax.
Oh, inheritance. Okay.
Yeah. So you could give it to your family members, or you could give it away. You could give it to people you don't know, or the government can tax it. Those are kind of the three outcomes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right?
And inheritance tax is pretty high, I'd imagine.
Well, there's lots of
It's
it's
complicated,
way
sure.
way past
Okay.
my expertise, but there are many capable people figuring out how to reduce that for people that want to pass that money on to their heirs. And again, I'm not here to judge it. I'm just saying there are more people saying I want to give it away than there were before. That's the directional trend that I see.
Are there any other trends that you're seeing in this space today? Is maybe more social good on the rise versus, I don't know what all the different categories are that people are giving to, but is there one that's like, oh, it's gaining some real momentum,
I think one that
or even dropping away?
well, in terms of gaining momentum, I think this one makes a lot of sense. So a donor advised fund, which I was talking about earlier. So you could fund it with any form, cash, or sometimes complex assets, business interests. But fundamentally, most people use it for like investment securities. So you take the tax deduction, you put the money in donor advised fund, you can give it away over time. But those assets can be invested. If you're giving it away over time, you're still investing them. What I think is really interesting is doing, some might call them catalytic investments, low return investments. Take Colorado, we have a housing shortage, especially in some of the ski communities. How do you build affordable housing? That may not produce a return to a typical real estate investor where they say that's interesting, but people will say, you know what, if I get my money back, that's a win. That would be a huge win. And if you have it in your philanthropic structure and you invest that money for affordable housing, you're having an impact with, call it the investable assets of that donor advised fund, and then you can get the money back. A grant would work differently, right? Because a grant, you're giving the money away to the nonprofit, and then it's gone. They did something with it. But having more impact with the investable assets of the philanthropic structure, I see that as a trend that is different in my mind than ESG, sort of screening public investments to align with values. This is really, how do I take that money and have impact through investing. And you may lose it, but if you grant to a charity, you've quote unquote lost it too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a way to experiment and do things. You already got the tax deduction. Why not try to have some other things with those funds? So I think it's a growing area. I'd like to think on the decline side, inordinate focus on again expense ratios. I think it's valuable, but up to a point. But I think nonprofits get too much scrutiny around that. I think that's a misconception. So I hope that's a trend that be prudent, be thoughtful, take care of people's money, but understand that you got to hire talent.
Is that kind of a story of a couple bad apples kind of ruining the bunch? Maybe from like a PR standpoint, there's a couple of nonprofits that maybe, or certainly were maybe fraudulent with the funds, and that's what gets the headlines, and that's why it's such a narrative out there?
I think so, and I think people think about the sector. It's probably not just that. I think they also I think they think about the sector as, you're doing good. There's sort of more of a resource constraint on that, because the people are solving problems that, generally speaking, the market hasn't solved. So a company gets revenue and sells it good because people demand this. But certain things in the nonprofit sector, there's not really a market for. But it doesn't mean that you can't pay people decently and have them, and invest in infrastructure and technology. So I think it's part perception of the sector too, not just the bad apples. I think it's probably both.
Looking at some wealthy individuals, like the founder of Patagonia, he had a very unique way of structuring his business. Well, he gave away ownership to fight climate change, and then there's other owners that he was very close with, like the founder of North Face, that are. Can you speak to how some of these owners of big, profitable, successful companies are giving away or making a positive impact?
Yeah, I mean that's one version. You also see others saying, "I'm not going to take a tax deduction. I'm going to create an LLC, and I'm going to be charitable without leveraging the tax code." So that's interesting. An LLC is not
Why
a
would they do
nonprofit.
that? They're like, we want
'Cause
to
they want-
give the money to the government?
No, they want to be able to support things and not feel restricted about how they're doing it. Because again, someone might be doing good work. There's a lot of different reasons. Also, just if you have a private foundation, you're filing that with a tax return, so people see how you're giving. So you can maintain anonymity. That's why a donor advised fund. There's one benefit to it of several. One is sometimes donors want to be anonymous, not because they maybe they don't want to be. They want to give a gift and they don't want other people to know, or many people want to be very discreet with their wealth. There are a lot of people out there with a lot of wealth that are very discreet about it.
And if people know, they can become a target.
Well, yeah, and people start shaking them down and things like that. And so I respect that. I think, there's a criticism of donor advised funds that people are hoarding money. And we've seen more than 20% of these funds are given away annually. The money's irrevocable. Once you go into it, it's going to go to charity. So it's people want to take their time and be thoughtful. And I ultimately think we should be about encouraging, activating generosity. And if it's not on our time frame, it's okay. But I know nonprofits will say, I want the money now. So I get that. But I'm focused on, my business is focused on how to make it better and more delightful for donors and reduce friction. And I think downstream from that, nonprofits will benefit.
I want to do a little rapid fire.
Okay.
Just kind of spark things off
Yeah.
a little bit with that. So just off the top of your head, a few questions. Who's your favorite nature-focused philanthropist, living or dead? I couldn't even name one.
That is a good question. I'll skip, call a friend.
If you could
It might
only,
come back to me.
yeah, only give to one environmental organization for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Uh, well, probably the Nature Conservancy, because a former colleague's the COO there, Neil Broker. You, my man.
Shout out to him. Nice. What's the most?
He's my favorite nature philanthropist because he works there. That's 1 and 2. How's
Oh,
that?
nice. His name again?
Neil Broker.
Neil Broker. Shout
Yeah.
out Neil Broker. What's the most misunderstood thing about philanthropy today?
It can be innovative. There's a lot of innovation in the space, and I think you'll continue to see sort of a convergence of, call it for-profit business and nonprofit, and for-profits having meaningful social impact.
What are the top 3 ways to give outside of writing a check?
Time, 1 and 2,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe open-mindedness.
What's one place in nature that always recenters you?
Lost Canoe Lake, northern Wisconsin.
Mountain, forest, ocean, or desert?
I like mountain, but desert's a close second.
What plant or natural remedy do you always keep around?
I'll have to ask my wife.
What do you think she'd say?
I don't know. She's got a whole repertoire.
Yeah.
So I'll ask her when I get home.
Okay, good. Most underrated environmental cause or issue right now?
Underrated. One that seems, I think probably ocean seems to have a lot. I just talked to a firm yesterday about so many families are interested in the ocean. And so, I would say that's probably one, maybe water in the West here. It affects our region. And that's an interesting area of, how do we solve that issue too?
Why do you think so many families are interested in the ocean right now?
It's surprising me because it's especially like being in the middle of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Why that's the case? Maybe it's because these families probably have places on the coast, and maybe they see it, but and it's so unexplored, right? So it's a frontier that we don't know a lot about.
What role should nature play in kids' education?
More. I mean, just even recess. I think trying to cram too much content into a day and not letting these kids get out and run around. And if you call that a playground nature, and I think they need that for sure.
Why do you think they're trying to cram so much into these kids' day?
It's because curriculum anytime you put something in curriculum, you need to take something out. If you keep putting stuff in, it's time in the day, state tests, outcomes, learning outcomes that you have to achieve in a school. So I think that's part of it, but I think we underestimate recess.
What's your favorite way to spend time outdoors with your family?
We like hiking.
You have a favorite hike?
We just did
Say in town.
Viewpoint Trail, Boulder.
Okay, I haven't done that.
Because it's not crowded, so don't everyone go there now.
I'd say for me, Lion's Lair is
Oh,
where I go when I bring friends in.
By the way, you said family.
Okay.
As a solo hike, Lion's Lair is my absolute favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because maybe you could go up the front of Sanitas, down's a much easier on the legs, but it's like Hobbitland. I always describe it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that your friends?
For Lion's Lair?
Yeah, I just love like the majestic nature of.
It's right
And the
downtown
switchbacks.
Boulder.
Yeah.
It's west facing, so you're
Mhm.
looking at nature the whole time. Yeah, it's great. It's tree covered, pine covered the whole way, and then you get to the top, and there's this big opening of looking out
Right.
over the town of Boulder.
I'm with you. Yeah, so solo hike. You asked with family.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good.
Okay.
Is there a land or conservation project you dream of funding one day, or even starting?
Well, I just, we obviously people need places to live, but you look at like your Chicago, you look at how much the expansion into the suburbs has gone, just retaining some of that for parks. Parks are great. And I think, like being in New York City, what a brilliant thing to have a park in the middle of that dense city. I would say, so as a general matter, just retaining parks we have some of the best national parks in the world. Absolutely fantastic. So keep those too.
Well, it was just in the news. I think it's called the Big Beautiful Deal,
Hmm.
where um, where there was a part, I don't know the details, but maybe like 1 million acres of public land was slotted to be sold off, and then public outcry, and
Mm,
now
they
that was
removed it.
all they removed it. Yeah.
Look, we need housing capacity, but at the same time, like having nature intermixed there is just so key.
Mm-hmm.
And there seems to be some places around that could probably use a facelift or an upgrade. So let's
Mm-hmm.
let's do those maybe. I don't know. I'll let
Mm-hmm.
the real estate experts deal with that. But
Yeah. What's the last awe-inspiring moment you had in nature?
I was in Cappadocia in Turkey, and what tradition there, if you know it, it's sort of like it was along the Silk Road, hot air balloon at dawn, and you're just looking everywhere, and it it's a lot of like cave dwellings there, and it's pretty fantastic. That was the most recent one.
What's one nonprofit doing better storytelling than most?
Nature Conservancy.
Nice. What is your giving philosophy in one sentence?
Passion. Someone that is passionate about what they're doing.
What is the future of AI? How will that impact philanthropy?
Well, I think for younger people, it's a great opportunity because what I told you earlier was philanthropy is personal, and most people when they're younger they don't think about giving money away. They think about volunteering. They don't necessarily have set organizations in mind. They might think, oh, I want to help the environment. How do I do that? I want to research it. So AI for discovery, I think, can really help younger people that are open. Search, on the other hand, is really about finding, I'm looking for XYZ because I have a relationship there. So I think AI can really help in the discovery process. That's how we think about it. I also love to see how AI can help this payment problem so that nonprofits can safely get money and we don't have to send paper checks to places and they can get the funds and make that efficient.
So is it the limit on the funds? PayPal will allow you to transfer up to $300,000.
No, no, it's the number of charities out of 1.8 million. There's
Oh,
about 300,000 in that are signed up in that program. So they have to
okay.
be diligent, vetted, put their payment information on. So look, I understand the problem for these nonprofits, which is I have so many places where people are sending money and I got to keep my payment information updated. And many, they're just trying to do good work. They're not necessarily focused on that piece to make it easier for them and just have one place that can receive these checks, reduce fraud. So the payment information, so there's, you want to avoid fraud, but you want to get the money there as soon as possible. And so that's kind of the challenge. But I think, AI could be helpful in that area as well. And creating community, I think you have, a lot of people will get philanthropy advisory services sort of that are writing big checks, being able to provide them, scale that advice to people that normally wouldn't get that service. I think that's another opportunity for, because philanthropy advisors do great work. There's a certain audience that will benefit from that service and pay for it. So how do you expand that out too? That could be another opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time today, Paul. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? A message you'd like to leave people with, maybe, and then tell us where we can learn more about your company and follow along with your work.
Well, I appreciate the thoughts that you had around. I should have thanked that plant at home. So I'm gonna be intentional about interacting with nature more. So I appreciate that. I'm gonna put some microgreens on my eggs in the morning, and I will think about some of those questions that I didn't quite have an answer to. So anyway, but I enjoyed the conversation and how you think about it, learning about you and your business, and just two Boulder people having a good conversation. So yeah, my company's Tiff and Give, and we're on LinkedIn, and our website is Tiffin TIF1FINGIVE.
And who's reaching out to you most? Who are you talking to the most? Who might really enjoy, being able to collaborate with you?
We really try to focus on the wealth enterprises and financial advisors. So we're not a B2C business. We really work with the wealth advisors because they're the trusted advisor to donors. So that's who we start with. But we have capabilities that, like, we have a feature we call guest giving, and it's really a GoFundMe that we do through our donor advice fund. So it allows young people who might get that allocation that I talked about earlier. If they get $1,000, they can go raise another $9,000 from their network. That hasn't been done before in a donor advised fund. So there's an element of kind of call it B2C engagement, but really we focus on the wealth firms and servicing them and their clients.
Great. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thanks, Steve.
Great job.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.